Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the YouTube. I have got a special video for you dropping today because all of you are probably caffeine addicts. I know that my man behind the camera definitely abuses caffeine way too much. So today's video is going to provide you with practical guidelines on caffeine use for training performance, satiety, and how you can actually maximize your caffeine intake without it being detrimental to your training performance and recovery. One thing I've noticed as of recent with quite a few clients that are currently in contest prep, upon reviewing the plan and doing a little bit of troubleshooting with them simply not making the progress that they should be, not sleeping, not recovering as well as they should be when the training volume, stress, and lifestyle generally is in check, it was pretty simple. It was overuse of caffeine. Caffeine can have tremendous benefits when it comes to not just managing satiety, improved training performance, sustainable energy levels throughout the day, but even cognitive function and focus, right? That's the reason why we all love a nice espresso now and again, right? But there is a trade-off. If you have too much, it doesn't actually give you any further benefits. So there is a fine line that you have to tread carefully with. And I will definitely give you a full breakdown of what the actual recommendations are clinically with a lot of the research and what I have found anecdotally works best with clients. And there is definitely the guidelines that we use with the milligram per kilogram dosing, which is applicable in this case, especially with caffeine intake. I don't think the milligram per kilogram dosing is applicable with super subs, but when it comes to caffeine, I do think it's a good reference point to actually work from, especially if you are a bikini athlete watching this. You probably don't want to be taking in 600 milligrams of caffeine per day because that will have a quite large negative impact on your recovery, sleep, and even ability to just relax. And not even take consideration just normal recovery with your central nervous system, it's going to be impacted because you are going to be constantly in a fight or flight mode without actually having a reset button. I wanted to give you some general guidelines when it comes to the recommendations for general use. And that is generally going to be 1 to 2 milligrams per kilogram. So 100 kilo male, that's 200 milligrams of caffeine, right? That is just general recommendation when you want to use it for just general cognitive function and focus. Now, if you want to lean into more so training performance, fat loss, and satiety, you can push that up to 3 or even 6 milligrams per kilogram. So 100 kilogram male, you would potentially take that up to 600 milligrams per day. And again, guys, the key points here will be how you structure a caffeine intake and making sure that you do not actually take it all in one hit. The RDA, which is the recommended daily allowance, is around 400 milligrams for adults. You can venture higher, especially if you are an individual that is heavier. But generally, I would never ever shoot for anything above 400 milligrams per day. And I would always make sure that majority of your caffeine intake is actually taken 8 hours away from your bedtime. And the main reason for that is, although a majority of the caffeine in its full effect will clear, the actual half-life of caffeine is quite long. So if you take your caffeine in within close proximity to your bedtime, it will have an impact on your sleep. And most importantly, not just your ability to fall to sleep, but it's going to have a massive impact on the quality of your sleep with your deep and REM sleep. So these are the things that you need to watch out for, which would be first one, actual timing of your caffeine, but secondly, making sure that you do not take a large amount of caffeine in one hit. Now, that's something I actually learned from Dr. Dwayne Jackson, who does actually formulations for supplements. And he actually mentioned in some of the studies, anything above 200, 250 milligrams of caffeine in one hit actually doesn't provide you with any additional benefits. Anything higher will actually have a counterproductive effect on your training performance and cognitive function. So if you are going to lean into having a higher caffeine intake, I would always favor splitting up the caffeine into numerous portions across the day. So the way it could look like, first thing in the morning, 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine, and then midday or pre-workout, another portion of 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine. Or if you do enjoy a coffee, you could even split that into 3 portions, morning, mid-morning, and pre-workout. In an ideal world, make sure that you are avoiding caffeine intake closer to bedtime or later on in the day. Now, just to give you an example, right? If you are a 70 kilogram female, which that's probably going to be an off-season bikini athlete of bigger stature, or a wellness or a figure athlete, right? If you're a 50 kilogram female, you're probably a lower end bikini athlete, or a short girl, or a short king yourself as a male, and you are doing classic. But anyway, let me just give you a reference point of what it would look like in practical world, right? If you're a 70 kilo female, then just general recommendation would be 70 to 140 milligrams of caffeine per day. That would literally be 1 to 2 shots of espresso, which is a very small amount in comparison to what normal caffeine intake is for general people, right? Now, the max that you would venture to is 400 milligrams. So between 210 to 420 milligrams, which would be 3 to 6 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight if someone's weighing a 70 kilo, right? Therefore, that would be 3 to 6 shots of espresso, or it would be 3 shots of espresso and almost a full can of Monster. So as you can imagine, guys, me breaking this down to you like this, it's so easy for you to actually abuse your caffeine intake. If you have 2 coffees per day with 3 shots of espresso, which is just your normal medium coffee from Costa, that's already 200 milligrams of caffeine. 1 pre-workout, that's stim, probably 300 milligrams of caffeine. That takes it already to 400, 700 milligrams of caffeine. You add a Monster on top, that's 1,000 milligrams of caffeine per day. And this is the reason why I have had 2 clients who wasn't actually losing body weight, wasn't making progress, they wasn't able to recover, they wasn't able to progress. And guess what we did, guys? We cut the caffeine intake in half. Their sleep improved by, on average, 1 hour per day. They dropped 3.5 pounds in 4 days, just from that one change. So on paper, caffeine can be extremely beneficial, but it can definitely be damaging if you overuse it and abuse it. So you have to be smart with your caffeine intake, and you also have to understand the potential negatives it can actually come with. Now, practical recommendation for timing. I have actually changed my views on timing of caffeine. The peak effects of caffeine actually take time for it to start to work. So generally, I would always recommend taking your caffeine 60 to 90 minutes before training. The main reason for that is you don't actually want to take a high amount of caffeine close to your training. Caffeine and any stimulant is a vasoconstrictor, which means you are not going to be able to get a great pump. So if you are competing, guys, and your coach is telling you to have stimulants before going on stage, any effigy of caffeine, guess what? Say goodbye to your pump. Any stimulant, any caffeine is a vasoconstrictor. You need to be wary of not taking them in within close proximity to your workouts if your goal is training for bodybuilding. If you're a powerlifter, get stimmed out of your tits. Doesn't matter, you're doing 1 rep. But if you're a bodybuilder, you want sustained energy without a crash. So maximum I would go for is 250 milligrams of caffeine pre-workout, 60 to 90 minutes before you train. This way, you get full effect and benefits of the caffeine intake, but without potential negatives of either overhyping yourself or the vasoconstriction that it can actually give you. Make sure that you are aware of caffeine, not only building up tolerance, but if you taking too much caffeine on more of a frequent basis, it's not that caffeine doesn't work, it does, but you will actually feel less effect of the caffeine taking place. So the caffeine that you're taking in, it's still working in the background, it's still doing what it's supposed to do, but you actually do not notice its effect anymore. The only way then to resensitize yourself is having a period of time away from caffeine, or even reducing your caffeine intake for a period of time to resensitize yourself to the effect of the caffeine that you feel, not the actual caffeine effect that it has on your body. That never stops, guys. And that's a little bit of a myth and a misunderstanding. Now, when it comes to utilizing caffeine for satiety, always err on the side of caution, and I would always lean into utilizing less. Stick to just normal caffeine through coffee and teas. And if you are using it for satiety alone, what I'd always recommend is splitting up your dosing at 100 milligram portions twice or 3 times per day. So if you notice that you are starving at the start of your day, 100 milligrams of caffeine first thing in the morning, and then potentially 100 milligrams of caffeine after your meal 1 and 2. This will definitely help you with satiety, but also help you with sustaining energy levels throughout the time frame where you potentially may be feeling a little bit more fatigued early on in the day. So key points, guys, to take into consideration when it comes to caffeine intake for practical use and just general considerations, right? Let's get down to business and let's bring it home. Practical use and considerations. Split your dosing to avoid crashes. Make sure that you are taking between 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine at a time, 250 milligrams max. Anything above that isn't really going to give you any additional benefits. Caffeine, if you put enough water in it, will help with hydration, believe it or not. There's a common misconception that caffeine is a diuretic. It's not, guys. The amount of caffeine you need to take to drive any diuresis is crazy. So if anyone tells you that caffeine will dry you out, it won't. Caffeine, however, can hydrate you, especially if you have a shot of espresso mixed with 400 mils of water. Guess what? That's 400 mils of water you are taking in. So caffeine will not dehydrate you. If anything, it will probably improve hydration because you're actually drinking more fluid. Avoid caffeine if you are sick or if you are pregnant. I think that's self-explanatory. Now, if you do have high blood pressure, heart issues, or if you do generally suffer anxiety, I would definitely avoid higher caffeine intakes and any stimulants, especially pre-workouts of high amounts of caffeine and mixtures of all different types of caffeine, which will definitely drive a lot of anxiety if you're not used to it. Now, try not to combine other stimulants with your caffeine intake. If you need a good pre-workout, my recommendation is Pumpage, which I take in year round. It's fantastic for hydration and just general pump and focus, which is exactly what I need. And I personally take my caffeine before my pre-workout meal, which is around 90 minutes before I train. And that actually sees my energy levels pretty much sustained throughout my sessions with no crashes and no excessive neuro drive, which then would drive more fatigue than needed. So make sure that you use caffeine, and now you have practical recommendations on how to use your caffeine and how to maximize your caffeine intake. Do not make the mistake of taking in too much and potentially see your progress take a hit, whether it's a fat loss phase or a gaining phase. Make sure you use it, but do not abuse it. Guys, for full videos like this, please check out what we offer at Team MK Coaching and my Excellence program. This is the mentorship that I run, and I do have full lectures covering this in more detail, and I do have weekly Q&As. So if you want to get involved, let us know. Anything that you need for coaching, consultations, training plans, Team MK Coaching. And guys, if you need anything from J by JP, code Kuba 10, you know the drill. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We're out.